timing isn't everything, but it's the only thing.
Green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow.
And welcome to the Unknown Packers podcast for Honeymoon is Over on tap. You can probably throw a question mark in there too, based on your perspective of the NFL virtual draft, which collected about 55 million viewers over the weekend. And I'm not running solo. I've got my other brother from another mother, Niebles. How are you doing?
What's happening, Brice? I am hanging in there. How are you?
Yeah, hanging in there. I feel good. I feel good. We recorded Janelle Mackey on tap over the weekend. I was able to withhold information, and nice. I am bursting at the seams to give you a visual on just, you and I have been texting the entire weekend. We usually text TV shows and Packers. That's what we do. That's what we do.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I've got an idea of your vibage, but it's 3-4 days now since the Packers drafted Jordan Love, and even when I say it, I chuckle a little bit, and I'm smiling right now because he did it.
He did.
So the speculation's over. I did a mock draft scenario of the Packers drafting Jordan Love. Did I think they were going to do it? No. Did I want them to do it? No. Initially, no. Did I expect them to do it? No. And if you go back to Draft Day on Tap last week, you had asked me, what are the two positions that would tick you off at the Packers in the earlier rounds? And I said quarterback, tight end. Well,
yep.
The Gutekunst took a quarterback, and then, say what you will with Josiah DeGara, what he can be, fullback, H-back, tight end. But with that, as the draft kicked off, what was going through your mind? So, it's virtual draft. I didn't even realize it was a virtual draft until they panned in on Roger Goodell in his basement, and then you got to see the other coaches and their family members. But they did a really great job of broadcasting the NFL. No glitches.
They really did.
I loved it. I love seeing family members, seeing kids and coaches high-fiving, seeing Belichick's dog do the drafting. But what was going through your head throughout the first round? It was a long wait for me. I started getting pretty tired, believe it or not, about the 18th or 19th pick right around the Raiders and Jaguars. But give me your feelings, man. Let's start off this episode. Honeymoon is over, maybe a question mark, depending on our listeners. But overall, the Packer fan base is ticked.
Oh, they are. They are. And I thought, as far as the draft itself was concerned, I actually really enjoyed the virtual draft. Like you said, it was kind of an interesting look inside the players' houses and their lives and their families. And it seemed more overall relaxed, a little bit more fun. I don't really think that they need the whole rigmarole of the big stage and the players coming up and hugging Goodell and getting their jersey and things like this. I honestly could be one of the few, but I wouldn't mind if they did something similar to this going forward. Maybe do the first round live and then have the later rounds, at a home, home virtual type thing. I thought it was a nice, refreshing change. I do think they can definitely refine it a little bit. We're talking, I think the first 5 picks took almost an hour.
Oh man.
So that was brutal. I think if they refine that, kind of get a little bit more strict on the talking points from the media, and just, when a pick is ready and in, go to that pick and then do your talking, afterwards, kind of tighten that up a little bit. I think it could be pretty cool and entertaining going forward. But yeah, as the draft was kind of unfolding, I was seeing the receivers that we expected to come off the board.
Yep.
And every time one did, I was kind of like, I was a little bit heartbroken inside, to be honest. I knew we weren't getting them, but then seeing them, like CD going to the Cowboys, I'm like, I knew we weren't going to get him, but at the same time, A, he went to the Cowboys, and B, he was officially off the board.
Yep.
So every time a receiver was picked like that, I was like, all right. And then when we got close to our pick, I saw, Queen was still on the board. A couple of receivers were still on the board. I'm like, all right, this could be cool. And then it happened. And it was, I wasn't mad because I was halfway expecting it. A lot of people had talked about it, in the weeks leading up to the draft. You know,
You
it's a
weren't mad?
possibility. What's that?
You weren't mad because some of your texts I could have. I got a WTF. I got a huh.
Well, I told you that was coming. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was mad. I think it was more. I was kind of confused.
They did.
It didn't make sense to me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I knew that it could have been coming, you know, with the players still on the board, it was just a move that did surprise me. I mean, it's weird. It's like it was surreal. I can't even explain it. It's like it was an unexpected, expected move. If that
glad
makes
that
any
you
sense.
mentioned, yeah. So I told you, like, I did that mock draft scenario just to see what else the Packers could get, you know, in the later rounds based off my perspective. And
Sure.
you know, he's there. I kept seeing Love there, and I'm like, man, you know, I for some reason I envisioned Love. I thought that, you know, he was going to go in the top 15. The day of the draft, I just got this Mahomes type of feeling that someone was going to trade up, maybe with Denver or something like that at the 15th pick, and snag Love. And then he started, you know, falling, quote unquote, into the 20s. And, you know, the thought did register. I'm like, oh, Love's still there. But I'm like, he'll probably go to New England. You know, I'm thinking New England will take him. But I'll be honest with you, at pick 25, since the draft had gone on forever and the first 5-10 picks took like an hour and a half, I was like, all right, we've got some time. So I went to the bathroom. I went outside, let the dog out, and then I got your text message of what the F. And immediately my heart dropped, and I'm like, they did it. I cannot believe they did it. And it wasn't like, oh, they took a cornerback, or, oh, they took, you know, a tight end in the first round. They took a running back in the first round. The WTF that you sent me was, oh my God, they did it. And so I went,
and they traded up to do it.
Traded up. And
I think that was the quote unquote worst part for me, is they actually traded up to do it.
Okay.
You know, hearing all the talking points. And hearing all the talking points afterwards about the teams that were calling the Packers, you know, to trade up to 30 and trying to trade ahead of them. I mean, again, it makes sense that they traded up for him, but again, at the same time, it does not make sense that they traded up for him. It's just the weirdest. It's just so bizarre to me. The whole thing is just bizarre how it all went down.
I think the other thing too is that kind of a revealing facet of Gutekunst, I guess, is that he doesn't really care about his 4th round draft picks all that much.
Right.
He just that's trade currency for him. Yeah, I'm with you. I think I would have much rather, because now that we read about it a little bit more, Gutekunst was targeting a wide receiver in the 2nd round. So part of me thinks that, you know, had they waited, had they waited for Love to drop to 30, then take him, you've got a 4th round pick. You can possibly move up in the 2nd round. But they got the player that they wanted. I think.
Sure.
Yeah. The minute you sent that text, I went on my, you know, I pulled out the phone, went on the app, and I just saw it. You know, Jordan Love, QB, Utah State. And I was numb. It wasn't like, I wasn't livid. I wasn't like, you know, maniacally laughing at the, you know, Sideshow Bob-esque. I was numb. I was more at a loss of words of like, wow, they really did it. So they went best player available, and Jordan Love was best player available. That was my initial feeling. And then I had to turn off my phone because people were texting. If you dare went on Twitter, and poor Jordan Love, I hope he did not go on Twitter at all. I'm sure he did.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
But what's your take now? Now that it's been 4 or 5 days that the Packers have taken Jordan Love, I have come to a couple theories, but I'm more wondering, are you okay with it? Are you okay with the selection? Because Packer fans are ticked. They got the worst grade from multiple different outlets.
Oh, yeah.
There was also some Bs and some B minuses. I think Sports Illustrated gave them a B minus.
Sure.
But man, they got slaughtered in other outlets.
And they're still getting slaughtered. I thought a couple things I found interesting, and I was actually reading up a little bit. I was on Packers.com this morning, and again, take it for what it is. They did say that Goody had his eye on a couple of receivers also in the first round, but by the time that pick came around, they were already off the board. So there was no one that they didn't have the draft capital again to trade up high enough to get the receivers they wanted. So they thought that Jordan was a better value at the pick.
Okay.
I'm still torn about the pick. I mean, I definitely, as I said, reading about it kind of sends me in all sorts of directions. I can understand. Yep, he's a great looking prospect. He could be good to step in for Rodgers in 3 to 4 years. Other writers had said, hey, if you wanted a worse Jameis Winston, you would have been better off just taking Jameis Winston. A lot of people aren't as high on him. So it's, me not being a big college guy, I didn't watch enough for him to really, I haven't formed my own opinion about him as a player. I am going to get into it, watch him a bit more, read up on him a bit more. But, from a future standpoint, yeah, I think it's great. I mean, if he's as good as people say he is, and, he's like that Mahomes type player, he's an Aaron Rodgers type player, someone that, after a couple of years of sitting behind Rodgers and developing, he's going to be a solid starter in this league. Great. I think it could turn out to be a great pick. On the other hand, if he is a Jameis Winston character and it doesn't pan out, well, then obviously, this is Goody's job on the line. I mean, I've been kind of looking at a couple of different ways. Like I said, he could turn out great and end up being, Rodgers' heir apparent, maybe outplaying him down the line and Rodgers rides off to the sunset somewhere else. He could end up being a bust and, never can get over that hump and Rodgers finishes off as a Packer and we have a different quarterback when he comes in. Or it could be like a Patriots scenario when they picked up Garoppolo in the second round. He lasts a couple of years. He's around for a couple of years. He's a pretty solid quarterback. Brady wants to keep playing, and he's still playing at a high level, and they end up shipping off Garoppolo to the Niners. It could end up a situation like that. So I'm pretty open-minded about it. I think like I said, it could go a couple of different ways. I'm not going to jump to conclusions at this point. First and foremost, I just hope we have football this fall so we could see him get to work.
Yep.
Get him some preseason action, see what he's all about. Let him learn behind Rodgers. I'm assuming after the Rodgers, after the treatment he got with the whole Favre scenario, and that's a whole nother story. I don't parallel that quite as much as everybody else does. But hopefully, Rodgers welcomes him with open arms, and it sounds like he knows that Rodgers isn't going to get beat out anytime soon. So I don't know.
You know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one.
Okay.
So I've got a couple theories, and
all right.
I think one, there's a possibility that there could be no NFL season. And for anyone that is listening, if they're like, oh, God, all that stuff. There was a point, just a month ago where every single hour, every single day, we were learning something new about coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak. So there's a chance that there might be no NFL season, right, which means no college football season, which means then you go into the draft pretty much using tape from, 2019 and early 2020, if there's any bowl games or anything like that. So there's, there could be some forward thinking with Gutekunst and LaFleur. I think personally that that's a cop-out. I think saying that there's no NFL season is the reason why they took Jordan Love. I would much rather be in a scenario where rather you need a quarterback.
Sure.
And then drafting ahead.
Right.
I mean, if Love goes to the New England Patriots at 23, what are we talking about? Oh, Belichick got his next signal caller. Belichick's going to get his Mahomes. And if you're looking at the tape of Jordan Love in 2019, you're going to be disappointed. So look at the 2018 college highlight reel of Jordan Love. But here's a guy, he's a big boy. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got the Jameis Winston, I'm going to steal some crab legs at midnight sort of syndrome going on. But I just envision LaFleur coaching up Love. And here's another theory that I want to talk to you about. So Ken Ingalls is a fan of the Unknown Packers podcast. We've had him in the quote-unquote studio. Him and I were, messaging back and forth throughout the weekend. So we've developed a kinship, a friendship. And he believes Jordan Love in 2022 is the quarterback, that Rodgers will get traded. And if you get a chance, go on Twitter at Ken Ingalls, INGALLS. I'm sure everyone that's listening is following him. Great stuff. But he talks about his salary cap scenarios. And, for me, the more we do this podcast, the more I interact and network with all these other people that are brilliant. the more emotion gets removed from me. And I'm not really sure I enjoy that, but I like being more educated. I do miss that reckless, almost, reckless abandonment as a fan where I didn't know as much. And so I was more based off of emotion. But the more you look at the salary cap, I mean, my biggest theory is when Aaron Rodgers signed his contract extension in 2018, and then, they brought in, Gutekunst had already come in. This was one of his biggest deals. And then they brought in LaFleur in January of 2019. Part of me thinks Gutekunst and LaFleur are two peas in a pod. And that's what we've wanted. We've wanted cohesion. Ted Thompson and McCarthy were not on the same page towards the end of their tenure, and it was noticeable. So I'm all for draft the players that you want to draft as long as the GM and the coach are on the same page.
Okay.
My theory is that LaFleur has, from the get-go, said, I want a quarterback that I can develop. Not one of these street free agents, not one of these undrafted free agents. Sorry, Tim Boyle. Sorry, Manny Wilkins. But I want a quarterback that I can develop, that I can coach. I want my guy. And that's not to discount Aaron Rodgers. But the feeling I get is that, Jordan Love can bust out. So then Aaron Rodgers can play with the chip on his shoulder, play with his hair on fire, all that stuff. I want him to ride off into the sunset. The thing that gets me is that I think Gutekunst kind of knew, like, all right, we need to give Rodgers his contract. So let's put let's front load it. Let's get him into these signing bonuses. But they created some opportunities in 2022 to get out of that contract in a trade. So
do you know what the numbers are with that? So I thought it was still a reasonably high.
Oh, yeah. They take a cap hit, but it's nothing like the $30 million. It's still about the $17 million. So you're looking at the CBA. You might get, the salary cap might increase. You can do, it's still expensive, but you can still get out of it.
Sure.
So with that, I think that Gutekunst is like, well, we got to give Rodgers his contract because he's great. And two, it's a quarterback-driven league. You need him. But then two, I think LaFleur's always wanted his QB. And I think Love falling to them, I guess, when you trade up to 26, I think that's LaFleur wanting his guy, coaching up his guy, his project. LaFleur's a passionate dude that loves passing techniques, has always wanted to develop quarterbacks, has developed quarterbacks. And I think that's the theory is that, yes, we gave him a contract extension. Yes, yes, Rodgers wants to play out his career in Green Bay. But outside of Tom Brady, not many quarterbacks play into their late 30s, into their 40s.
Right.
So, yeah, we have this case study with Tom Brady, but that's an outlier. That's the exception to the rule. Aaron Rodgers is still great, but man, what if Love starts picking up on just the different nuances that LaFleur wants to put up in this offense? It's going to become one of those scenarios where you're going to see in practice where they start gravitating towards Love. Now, a lot can happen, but personally, I think the big question is 2022. There could be a real good scenario that, you didn't trade up in the first round to just get a guy that you can develop that hopefully you can flip. I think ideally they want him to be the heir apparent, depending for how long. But, he's only 21 years old, so maybe he can sit for 4 years. He'll be 25.
Sure.
But that 2022 number, and check out Ken Ingles, it's still an expensive cap hit, but it's nothing like the 30 or 40 million. But he's going to make 40 million next year.
Right.
And so I don't know. Part of me thinks that LaFleur has always wanted his guy. This was an opportunity. And I think the shock of me was not realizing that, oh, dang, Aaron Rodgers could possibly not finish his career as a Green Bay Packer.
Sure.
So I think that is, for me, I just didn't, it was like, oh, I like Jordan Love. I do. But my thing was, oh, man, so Aaron Rodgers is not going to retire Green Bay Packer? Well, why'd you give him that contract extension? Well, I think they gave him the contract extension because they needed him in Green Bay, and you give him that contract extension to keep him happy. Love is still going to have to beat out Rodgers, but I do not think it's going to be one of those New England type of scenarios where, all right, now look at New England right now. They've got Jared Stidham as their backup or as their quarterback because they wanted to go after Jalen Hurts, probably Jordan Love.
Sure.
So I think for fans, they need to wrap their mind around the possibility that in 2 years, Jordan Love could be the quarterback.
Yeah, it would surprise me, yet it wouldn't surprise me. It's just one of those, I just can't wrap my head around the whole thing. And now that you mention it, kind of reading some quotes from LaFleur is he did say that, he hopes that Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers can play as long as Aaron Rodgers wants to play.
What else is he supposed to say?
But at the same time, unless I'm thinking into it too deeply, he didn't say, Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Packers as long as he wants to play.
Exactly.
He's just saying he's going to play for as long as he wants to play, whether it's in the green and gold, whether it's in another color. I don't care.
Right.
He's going to play as long as he wants to play. So, I mean, you did bring up very valid points. I mean, again, it's just one of those things that I haven't completely wrapped my head around. And I wasn't suggesting they picked up Love as a flip.
No, I know what you mean.
That could be a possible scenario, just relating it to the Brady Garoppolo scenario. But yeah, I mean, now that you mention that, I mean, I was thinking pretty much because of the cap numbers, it was going to be virtually impossible to trade him, till closer to the end of his deal. But yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a big hit. One thing that you also want to think about, again, not going the cop-out route, is if there is no football next season, how do you think that's going to impact? Because didn't they say if there's no football, or even if there is football, the cap is still, they're expecting it to drop $60-70 million.
Yep.
Now, do you think that would have an impact on being able to trade him after 2022? I mean, is that it's going to magnify that cap hit? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a question for Ken Ingalls. I think.
Okay. Let's get him on the phone.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think with coronavirus, with the coronavirus pandemic that's going on, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, this is unprecedented, but I think that they got a quarterback that LaFleur believes that he can coach up. There's definitely some blemishes, but there's some. Man, does he have a cannon for a freaking arm. And LaFleur, being a former quarterback, grooming quarterbacks, I think he's the perfect head coach. These scenarios are storylines of Favre and Rodgers. If anything, I think Rodgers, it was a traumatic experience for him the way Favre, treated Rodgers. So I doubt. And now you've got teammates coming up, Jay Sternberger, James Jones, saying how great of a teammate he was. He's always trying to get the best out of players. I believe I read something on Jeff Janis yesterday too.
Sure.
He was the famous in the doghouse, but he even said that he was like, it wasn't the doghouse, just that Rodgers expected perfection. And I have to admit, I wasn't there yet. And when you have a guy like that, I'm excited to see the development of Jordan Love.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm excited to talk to you more too about a couple other theories and the rest of the Packers draft. But I think this is a good time to take a quick commercial break.
All right.
We'll be right back for the second half of Honeymoon is Over on tap. Go Pack Go. And we are back for the second half of Honeymoon is Over on tap. And we talk about Jordan Love in the first half. And we're going to continue to talk about Jordan Love. It's really hard in just one episode to break it down. And for the listeners that didn't turn us off during the commercial break, I want to ask, or I want you to remember that I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. He's probably my favorite player, professional athlete. But the more you look at it, I just think that it's Gutekunst and LaFleur. And with that, we talk about this career-defining move. You talk about with Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur. I think the crazy part is, we talked about how wild Gutekunst is, and he's a straight-up gangster. He lost some fans over the weekend, but this is a career-defining move. Now, say if Jordan Love does not yield what a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick, what do you think that does for Gutekunst and LaFleur's legacy? Do you think they're automatically tied to Love no matter what?
I think at this point they are. Yeah, yes. I mean, win or lose. I mean, when you trade up, that kind of capital to move up, even though it was just a couple spots to pick a quarterback. It's one of those things that in my opinion, you better be right about him. Yep. You know what I mean? Especially when he's going to come into, again, replace one of the greatest throwers in the history of the NFL. I mean, that's just something, boom or bust. Yeah, they're going to be tied. They're going to be tied to his legacy forever. I don't see how they couldn't be.
And I mean, it's a different scenario with Favre and Rodgers. You know, I'm banking on Rodgers and Love getting along great, and I'm very interested to see this. Like, I'm more intrigued with, and that's probably the shock, is that we went into the draft saying this is what the Packers need. And it was more or less a sense of this is what McCarthy's Packers need and Thompson's Packers need.
Sure.
And now we're transitioning into Gutekunst and LaFleur. If you think about it, this is really LaFleur's first year. Last year, he's implementing some concepts, but he didn't have the correct personnel in there to completely unveil what he wants schematically. So now this is the draft class. This is the class that he gives the quote-unquote weapons to LaFleur and Rodgers. They weren't the weapons that we were envisioning because I don't think that we had the right lens. I think when it's all said and done, I'm hoping, because if, this could be something where Gutekunst does get fired and so does LaFleur. I don't foresee that happening. I think Gutekunst is a baller and I think LaFleur is as well. But I do think it's interesting that, all right, this was the draft class for LaFleur. You got his future quarterback, got this bruising running back that just completely just eats linebackers for breakfast. A guy that I think is going to become a fan favorite in December, running on that frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. But by trading up with Jordan Love, you had mentioned that they had their eyes on a wide receiver. They had their eyes on a couple wide receivers in the second round, most notably possibly Chase Claypool. I think Michael Pittman Jr. was also high on their list as well. But so I think the biggest thing for me was the shock was, oh, wow, this is an overhaul in personnel. This is an overhaul schematically. And this isn't just a one player away from going to the Super Bowl. I just think that we got lucky last year. I think we played above being 13-3, especially LaFleur's first year. And I think he wants his own offense. And I'm really curious to see these unique concepts of Dillon and Jones and DeGuara and Jay Sternberger and Devontae Adams and Lazard. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, just on the whole draft class itself, or?
Yeah, I guess maybe mostly people are shocked at Jordan Love. For me, the shock was I didn't foresee the draft being all right, this is totally Matt LaFleur's draft.
Sure.
This is the personnel that he's going to fit in. I thought he was going to draft the best available wide receiver. We're good to go. He's like, no, I want my quarterback. I want this specific running back. I want this H-back, fullback, inline tight end who was rated a 6th-round draft pick, and we drafted him in the 3rd.
Right.
Not hating it.
Right. And I think I didn't really realize until I was talking. You were kind of talking me off the ledge a little bit when talking about these players, saying, "Hey, these are guys that fit more of a LaFleur scheme." He's building his offense, so that made more sense to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in shock that. I think what did it for me is Rodgers said that we haven't picked an offensive skill position for 15 years. He said that before the draft, and to go round after round after round after round and not getting him that receiver, that shocked me. That shocked me. But then again, like I said, you said that it sounds like LaFleur is building his own type of offense. He's got his Derrick Henry and Dillon, and he's got his fullback, tight end, his Juszczyk and
Kyle Juszczyk.
Yep, and DeGuara. But a lot of these guys, I mean, I'm starting to like them a little bit better. It almost seems like from 2 on, everybody's picked maybe a round early. You know what I mean? Which is kind of, But I just have to sit back and kind of trust what they want to put together. Rodgers isn't going to be around forever. They are, going to be losing pieces after next year. And this isn't quite a full-on rebuild, but like you said, they're kind of sculpting this team to be more in the offense that LaFleur wants to run. And Goody and obviously Murphy's right with them in okaying that. So the picks do make they're starting to make a little bit more sense to me. But again, it was just. I'm going by like kind of what I tweeted. It was just a shocker, the realization that Rodgers' window is officially closing. He's not going to be playing for much longer. And now they're picking these guys, and they're going to build the next team that we're going to be watching for hopefully the next 10, 15 years. So,
which I'm all for.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. The biggest surprise was, the offensive approach of like, oh, this is what you want. Okay. And so I went back, after we drafted Dylan, I went back and I watched the NFC Championship game with the Niners and Packers for the first time since January. And man, the run game, I mean, granted, we made it interesting in the fourth quarter, maybe if we got a couple stops here and there, but the defense was gassed because of the run game. The run game completely demoralized. It didn't matter who they put back there. And that is because of what Shanahan does pre-motion, his concepts, his, what it looks like schematically. That's what makes him so dangerous, is that he can put anyone back there and they can churn out yards. And that's what LaFleur wants. And for the listeners and all the, the Twitter followers are like, well, why are we copying Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers? Well, the fact is it comes from the Mike Shanahan tree,
right?
The ground and pound, and everything stems from the run. LaFleur said that last year. Everything stems from the run. Well, we have Aaron Jones. Well, I personally think another theory is that A.J. Dillon's a bad man. Yeah. Go watch his tape. I can't wait to break him down with you a little bit more. But I think he's going to open up more for Aaron Jones in the passing game. I think that there are going to be mismatches all over the field with Jay Sternberger, Josiah DeGara. You got Devontae, who's the best separation artist in the league. And then I think that Aaron Jones is going to be more of this pass catching, get a linebacker on a mismatch type of back, in my opinion.
Right. And here's also just kind of thinking about the whole, San Francisco comparison, trying to be more like their offense, which makes perfect sense. But at the same time, to me, and again, it could be me overthinking things, is, obviously with San Francisco and their style offense, completely gashed us in the, in the championship game. I would almost think that instead of taking your Dylan, in the second round, maybe he'd be available in the third, and, Josiah in the, he was a guy many sixth round grades. I'm almost surprised that they didn't try to go a little bit more defensive heavy to try to combat that attack, and then take these players, presuming they're available later, taking them with a later pick. I mean, you had guys, the interior linemen like Blacklock was available, Queen was available when they picked Love.
Yep.
I'm surprised if they're so worried about what San Francisco did to them. Why not address that on the defensive side and then pick up this type guy, around later? Again, who knows if they would have been available, but it certainly sounds like DeGara would have been available later. Dylan possibly into the third round.
Maybe.
So that's who knows? I mean, kudos to Goody for going out and getting his guy, for getting who he wanted, and who's to say who was on his big board. But that was my whole thought when they were talking about trying to emulate San Francisco. I said I would try to stop them first and then try to emulate what they were doing. But what do I know? I'm sitting here on a podcast with you, not running some NFL front office.
Right. Well, I think too that they've already invested in the defense, and I think Gutekunst made up his mind that he was going to invest in the offense, and he was going to get personnel that fit LaFleur's vision. Rather than going toe to toe. I mean, I see you. I think that's another shock is that they didn't even draft a D tackle at all.
Right.
And so they took an inside linebacker, Kamal Martin, who I cannot wait to talk to you about. He's fun. And then Jonathan Garvin in the 7th round, more edge guy, D end. But rather than go toe to toe where you fortify the defensive line, that's probably year 2, year 3 investment that you get to see unfold. I think that Gutekunst and LaFleur think that they can go. I think they believe they're smarter than Kyle Shanahan. I think that they're more confident in their ability. So get the pieces on offense, because Gutekunst spent all that money last year on the defense. He got those playmakers. They clearly do not care about inside linebacker all that much. They're rolling the dice on Christian Kirksey and Oren Burks and now Kamal Martin, but for those that thought Patrick Queen or Kenneth Murray, maybe if Kenneth Murray was there, they'd take him. But I think that this was more about getting LaFleur his type of guys in this offense. And again, it took me a while to understand that of okay, this is what you want. But I mean, for comparison's sake, and I tweeted this out, Kyle, Juszczyk was a 4th-round draft pick. He was taken 140th overall. Josiah DeGara out of Cincinnati was taken with a 94th selection in the 3rd round. They traded their 4th-round pick to move up with Love. So if you're looking, I mean, we all wanted Danny Vitale to be that guy. You know, I just don't think he was. I think that, and I remember Coach LaFleur talking about how, Danny got on that, he fell on the 1-yard line. They're like, hey, why didn't you give him the ball back? He's like, you got to get it on the first try.
Right.
And so I think that Josiah DeGara, which is my favorite selection out of the entire class, I think he is going to become a Packer favorite. I cannot wait to see what they do with Jason, Josiah, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones. This more than likely means that A.J. Dillon takes over for Jamal Williams.
Williams, right? Yep.
But that's my thing is let's enjoy and see what happens and see what transpires. We were so frustrated with Ted Thompson, drafting players that Dom had to convert and vice versa. Now he gets his bruising running back, he gets his fullback, H-back tight end that he desperately wants, and then they fortify the line in those 6th-round draft picks.
Right.
And 3 nasty dudes too, might I add, with Simon Stepaniak and Jake Hansen and John Runyon. So overall, I don't think it's a bad draft, but I think it takes the right person to take a step back and go, okay, I see what happens. But I didn't get to that point until like Sunday afternoon.
Now, do you think, everybody's got their grades, the fans got their opinions. If they, stuck with Jordan Love at 1, okay, and let's say 2, they went in and grabbed a receiver or, like I said, Blacklock, that stud interior defensive lineman, and then the draft fell just like it had, Dillon at 3, Josiah at 4, just bump everybody down around. Do you think people would be satisfied then, or will they just still find something to bitch about?
Well, I mean, you always have those extremes on each side of the spectrum. And I saw that tweet too. I think Peter Bukowski tweeted that out. If you push all these guys down and then draft, a D tackle or a wide receiver. Okay.
I didn't see that tweet.
Oh, you didn't?
I swear.
Oh, nice.
No, I didn't. No.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. But then again, it really comes down to, all right, a lot of the people that are freaking out are huge Aaron Rodgers fans. And I think that depending on how you view that, no matter what, you're going to hate the draft.
So do you think that the Love pick just kind of set that negative tone for those folks, and no matter who they picked after that, there wasn't going to be, they weren't going to really come around? Or
yeah, especially when you look at it just, I think if you just look at it and say, oh, the Packers went 14-4, they were 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl, how do you not get an immediate contributor? Right. And I know that you talked about where rookies can contribute. I'd much rather have players that fit in to LaFleur's vision rather than LaFleur having to coach players to buy in that might be veterans.
Right.
I love the fact that Gutekunst and LaFleur are on the same page. I like the bold strategy. I mean, dang, they knew what they were doing. But I think then it speaks to their confidence and their preparation for them being on the same page.
Sure.
I think for them to not take a wide receiver is shocking. If you would have told me, all right, they took a quarterback, running back, and tight end and did not take in the first 3 picks and did not take a wide receiver, of course anyone's going to grade that an F. Of course.
Right.
I just think that they have Devontae Adams. They believe that Funchess can contribute. LaFleur's geeked out about him.
Yep.
Lazard is only 24 years old, has Rodgers' trust. And then they're going to be a ground and pound type of offense that everything stems from that. So if I wouldn't be surprised. And I also think that it preserves Rodgers' career. I would love to see Rodgers more in play action. I like the Love pick because I do think it's going to put a chip on Rodgers' shoulder. He's going to want, and now he's got some competition. I mean, I think, not to say that Love is going to transplant or supplant Rodgers, but I just think, competition breeds, better play and inspiring play. And I think that this benefits Rodgers. This doesn't deter him, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that, thinking about it, I think Dillon is going to have a better chance of contributing next season than one of the receivers they would have ended up with. I mean, I know I said there are a lot of outliers out there that did contribute in the rookie season. But look at someone like Adams, who everybody wanted to cut until year 3.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, all right, so you draft a stud in the first round. Again, some of those are outliers, and they will most likely contribute this season. But you pick someone up there, and he doesn't do anything in year 1. He doesn't do anything in year 2. Now you're griping about, well, we wasted a first, second round pick on this guy.
Yep.
Year 3 comes around, and Rodgers is, finally he's wrapping up his career. It's just like, I think Dylan has a chance to come in there and contribute immediately.
I think Dylan and DeGuara.
So, yeah, exactly.
I think both of those guys are going to contribute heavily. And also, I mean, if you go back and listen to Gutekunst, in his pre-draft pressers, he talks about how historically it takes longer for rookies to develop. Historically, you don't want to burn draft capital.
Right.
I think he's banking on EQ coming back. We've talked about MVS. I don't think he's a cold weather type of dude because you've seen him in warm weather, you break out, and you've seen him in cold weather where he's non-existent. But I think you're right. I think A.J. Dillon's going to become a favorite. I think, him and Aaron Jones complimenting each other. Oh, baby. Just go
That'll
watch some tape with A.J. Dillon. Dude, the finesse, the balance for how large he is with his speed, I'm okay with the second round draft pick. We'll talk about, in later drafts or in a later episode of breaking down all these picks. But Kamal Martin is a guy that I'm an intriguing prospect. They're undrafted free agents that I'm excited to talk to you about and to unveil to our listeners. But overall, I think, it was more of like Rodgers just got a contract extension a year and a half ago. And now we're talking about, oh man, like who knows what's going to happen. And, our buddy Ken Ingalls is convinced in 2022, it's the Jordan Love show. And like you said, I don't think you trade up if he's not going to be the heir apparent, and we'll see what happens. But being in the moment now, I'm intrigued to see where this offense goes. They still took 3 offensive linemen, granted in the 6th round, but I think those guys were steals in the 6th round. All in all, as we wrap up, honeymoon is over. Yeah, the honeymoon is over. No, not everyone loves Brian Gutekunst anymore.
No, they don't. And all I got to say about that is give it a chance. I mean, I know it's a tough pill to swallow. Everybody's got to get in that mindset that Rodgers is not going to be around forever. But again, these guys, no matter who says, no matter what media guys, what analyst says, these guys are running this franchise for a reason. They know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for in players, and you just gotta have a little faith. You gotta trust the process.
I say you gotta be a fan, and I think more than anything, it was shocking, especially in the unprecedented time that we're experiencing right now with COVID-19 and coronavirus pandemic. To go on Twitter and to see people, it's embarrassing. I thought that it'd be an opportunity for a lot of people to reset, to figure out what's important. And I think for some, what's important is to complain and bash other people. We're not going to do that here at the Unknown Packers podcast. Always going to look at the other perspective. I think the biggest takeaway was, oh man, I thought you're a wide receiver away maybe. Actually, you're a few players away to get LaFleur to feel confident and comfortable in his offense. But I'm all for it. It makes it intriguing, and there are a lot of hypotheticals that we're going to play out here moving forward, but I can't wait to break down all the draft selections in our.
Speaking of, before we wrap up, before we wrap, without giving too much detail here, who out of all the draft picks, who's your favorite?
I think my favorite is Josiah DeGuara. Fullback, tight end, H-back out of Cincinnati. I love his speed. He's a little bit shorter than Kelsey. But, Travis Kelce also went to Cincinnati as well. There's a video of DeGuara stopping a pick 6, and it's a video that LaFleur showed Gutekunst late last fall. Like, hey, check this guy out. Well, Gutekunst went out and drafted him in the 3rd round. So talk about Gutekunst, loving his boy LaFleur. I think Josiah is probably my favorite pick out of them, just because it's so unique. We wanted to see what Danny Vitale can do. I think he's going to break out. I think he's going to cause a lot of confusion. And I think it's such an intriguing draft pick, but they took him in the 3rd round clearly because he's got the speed. But I'm more just wondering how they use him in this offense. How about you?
I kind of go back and forth between two. I love the Dillon pick just because I like that style of running back. I mean, a lot of people says it kind of reminds them of that hard nosed runner like Eddie Lacy was, which I was a big Lacy fan.
Same.
So I just like that big bruising back style of running back. And then I also really like the John Runyon pick.
Oh yeah, we talked about that, baby.
Yeah, we did. So yeah, I'm excited for him to come in. He's one of those guys, again, without revealing too much, because we'll talk about him more in depth, but one of those guys that's ready and willing to play any position. And that was one of the picks that made a lot of sense to me. And again, we'll go over it in an upcoming show here about how he fits in the offensive line, especially if they lose certain people and need to move other people around. I think that was a great pickup. I think he's going to be a stud for us down the road.
I mean, if you don't even show the first 5 rounds and you see Runyon, Hansen, Stepaniak, Scott, and Garvin. Garvin was projected in the 4th, 5th round, same with Scott.
Yeah.
So I think Gutekunst did a great job rounding out the draft. Time will tell, but he got the players that are going to fit into LaFleur's system. He's keeping his coach happy. He's keeping his coach passionate. That's all for it. And now we're going into his 2nd year. I'm excited to see what LaFleur brings to this team. And I'm excited to see a new wave of fans banding together and really showing how we can continue to be the classiest and greatest fan base in professional sports. But this was a rough weekend. This was a brutal weekend, a black eye for our fan base. And for whoever's listening, hopefully this episode gave you a little bit more clairvoyance, a little bit more, refreshment of what I think you need to change your lens. It's all about fitting LaFleur's scheme. And Rodgers is going to be Rodgers. Everything's going to be fine. Packers are stacked. Got a great team. Bunch of Pro Bowl players. Didn't get that wide receiver that everyone wanted, which I still cannot believe they didn't take a single wide receiver.
Yeah.
But you stick to the board. I mean, that's exact. You're not reaching for players. You stick to the board. You depend on your prep, and this is what we got. But so far, third draft for Brian Gutekunst, and it's safe to say the honeymoon is over, and a career-defining draft for your general manager, Brian Gutekunst. This is great talking, Eagles.
Sure.
And fun going back and forth over the weekend with all the different selections, and we needed it. We needed this draft. We needed some football, and I cannot wait to continue talking about the newest draft picks, the newest players of your Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it's going to be some fun talks coming up.
Any last words?
Trust the process. Trust the process. That's about all we can do, and have a little faith and enjoy the football while we have it.
There you have it. I am your co-host, Brice Christensen.
And I'm Niebles.
And this is the Unknown Packers Podcast.